Welcome to the Reticle Up podcast, where I, 3-Gun Kenzie, will be interviewing competitive shooters, hunters, fishermen, archers, entrepreneurs, and outdoorsmen. Come learn with me as I interview people from all walks of life, in different disciplines, all across the world, from novices to professionals of all ages. No matter what, everyone has something they can teach you, so come join me on the journey. Welcome back to the Reticle Up podcast, everyone. I am here with Brennen Decker. You might have heard the last episode I did with his brother, Trace Decker. So now we have the other half. So Brennen, how are you?
I'm doing all right. How are you?
I'm doing good. So you're the younger brother, correct?
Yes.
Okay. I'm kicking this off, actually. Who's more competitive, you or him? Really
it's
hard.
a toss-up. I would almost say him. If I had to guess.
Okay.
Yeah.
I like it. So, yeah, when did you start competitive shooting? I actually don't know. Like, did y'all start together at the same time, or is it something one of you guys got into, or what happened?
We both actually started at the same time. It was in 2017. So I was 15 at the time. I'd say he was 20 or 21. We started out shooting just outlaw matches that some of our friends had put together, and then eventually we started shooting USPSA.
Cool. So he never got the junior years. You did.
Correct. Yeah, I actually got to shoot in a couple major matches as junior, but I don't think he ever got that privilege.
That's cool though. Yeah, that's a totally different experience. I never started that young either. So actually I'm curious about that. What was it like being a junior shooter? Is it any different from being an adult, other than like maybe paying for your own stuff?
I didn't see much difference in it because I never even paid attention to category performance.
Yeah.
Because I shot Battle in the Bluegrass as a junior, and I think there was like maybe 2 or 3 junior shooters in the entire match.
Yeah.
So winning high junior at a match where there's 3 junior shooters is not really saying much.
Yeah, I can see that. Okay, so then you only did USPSA then. Have you shot any other sports?
I've shot a couple of 2-gun matches, run gun matches, and other than that, it was just 3-position air rifle in high school. That's all I ever done.
What? Okay, go back. Okay, 3-position air rifle. Was that on a high school team? Like, did you guys have that as part of your high school?
We had a JROTC program that had a rifle team, and I'd done the rifle team from my freshman year to my senior year.
What? Did you have to qualify for that?
Yes. Yeah, there was qualifications for that. It was very interesting to watch.
Brennan, tell me about it. I want to hear. I've never actually heard anybody about doing this, so tell me more.
So basically what they'll do is they'll take whoever's interested in joining the air rifle team and bring everyone out for an afternoon to see basically who can shoot and who doesn't need to be there.
The politest thing I've ever heard.
Well, there's slots on the air rifle team, so it's like if you have a handful of really good shooters, you're going to keep them and then just push the rest of them to the side.
Sure.
So they would start off just benching the rifle and shooting 3 rounds to see if you could even hold a grouping to begin with. And you'd be amazed at how many people could not keep a grouping. Like, it was horrible.
No, I wouldn't be surprised, honestly. But yeah, okay.
Yeah, so they do that, and then they start off with standing position. So see who can shoot standing, and then they'll go through prone and kneeling just to get an idea of what they're working with. And my first year that I done it, there were several that after the very first day of doing it, they just didn't come back. So it weeded them out really quick.
Sure. Now, air rifle, that's the sanctioned, like, you're wearing that vest thingy and you're learning how to hold the gun, right?
So the level that we were doing it at, no, like it was literally just we had a fancy little glove to go on our left hand, and that was it. It was we were shooting there was a Crossman PCP Challenger air rifle. So it was like $600 air rifle and minimum equipment. That's pretty much all it was. We didn't get into all the vests and all that fancy stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. So how did you do individually, and how'd you do on like the team?
I did all right on the individual side, and we did all right as a team. It was interesting experience. I guess I could put it that way. We didn't get to do a whole lot of training just because our program was more invested in other things.
Mm-hmm.
So the air rifle side didn't practice a whole lot. I honestly can't remember like where I placed on individual competitions at all. Like I just didn't pay much attention. I was just there to shoot.
Yeah.
But in comparison to some of the people I knew that were shooting at other schools, oh no, I was pretty far behind them. Yeah, I was not too great at it.
But you were having fun. It sounds like you weren't really focused on sports. You were out there to enjoy it.
Somewhat, but I was still pretty competitive because so from the very first day of shooting air rifle, they tell you that, there's some classifications or whatever you want to call it. So you got like marksman, sharpshooter, and expert. And there's different scores you have to shoot to get each of those. Mm-hmm. So immediately right out of the gate, I want to get the expert badge. Just right. Like whenever you start shooting USPSA, you're like, I want to be a grandmaster. It's the same thing with air rifle. So you see it and you're like, that's what I want. So that it immediately sets the goal. And I don't know how long it took me, but by my freshman year, I had the expert badge.
Wow.
And so from there, it was just maintaining that. It's like I never really set another goal after that, which was probably a bad thing.
Yeah.
Looking back at now, everything I've learned with USPSA shooting, I mean, it all translates over. Like I sit back and think about it occasionally. I'm like, that was visual patience was important even with air rifle, but I never, put a label to it or paid any attention to it. It was just like, okay, well, if that shot looks okay, press the trigger, hope for the best. No, looking back, there was a lot of things that could have been done differently, but
interesting.
Yeah, it was fun. It was fun, but never got extremely competitive with it.
Yeah. Now, when you were growing up, I guess before that too, like had you shot firearms before? Had you like gone hunting, or was that really like the first experience with any type of gun?
No, before that I had I really liked just shooting a single shot cricket 22. Like I would simply go out and shoot rocks, clay pigeons, anything I could find that I could shoot with a 22 rifle.
That you could destroy.
Just enjoyed shooting. Pretty much. That's all it was. I would just find something that I could shoot, whether it's little Coke cans, water bottles, it didn't matter. I just wanted to shoot something.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Okay, so then diving into USPSA, like, did you always start out in your lovely production division?
No. I started out just shooting limited minor. I think that's where pretty much everyone starts out at.
Yep.
I was shooting a 17L unlimited, and I shot that thing. I think I shot it for about a year and a half unlimited, and I never even paid attention to the classification system or even being competitive and limited until much later on. I mean, I didn't even become a member of USPSA until I'm thinking late 2018 or 2019. I can't remember exactly.
I mean, you were still young then, though, too.
Yeah, and so I was never even worried about the classification system.
Yeah.
And the only reason I ever went to a major match is Battle in the Bluegrass. They were having their last match, I guess, Battle in the Bluegrass 10. something like that. And Life with GX Products had a junior slot for the match. I figured, well, I might as well sign up for it and see how it goes.
Mm-hmm.
And same message about it, got the slot, and from that I was like, I guess I should maybe start shooting production just to get ready for the match. So I shoot one local match in production, then go to a major match.
Excellent. Now, did you shoot the Glock 17L still?
No, I switched.
Okay.
A little bit of backtracking there. After I realized that limited minor was dumb, I went and got a Glock 34, slapped a Vortex venom on it, and shot carry optics for a while.
Okay.
Then whenever I signed up for Bound the Bluegrass, I just grabbed a Glock 17 I had that still had iron sights on it and just shot it for the match. So it's 17L was a paperweight at this point.
Gosh.
Like, it is still sitting over in the safe, never to be touched again.
Now, Glock. Have you ever owned anything else?
Yes. Yeah, I've had 1911s that I just too expensive to feed a 45, especially to shoot a match.
Mm-hmm.
And of course now I'm shooting 10 folios, a little bit different animal there. I've played with 2011s and open and limited before as well.
And how good are you with the 2011? Yeah. He's going to be.
I can shoot a 2011 fairly well.
Yeah.
I can shoot a 2011 fairly well.
Yeah.
Yeah,
so,
it's cheating.
That's what I call it. It's my cheater gun, and it shoots for me. And then I have to kind of perform like 10% of the rest of it.
Yeah, pretty much.
So much fun.
Shot a limited gun a couple months ago for a classifier match.
Mm-hmm.
And
there's no words how much fun you had.
There is not. I didn't want to do it again because I wanted a 20.
You're gonna want it. Yeah.
Yeah, eventually I might end up with one, but
no, there's not a might. There's no might about it. You will. It's just a matter of saving and finding the time.
Correct. For now, I'd rather buy bullets and just keep shooting the 10 folio.
Yeah. Okay, so going back production, so one minor match and then go shoot a major. How did that major turn out though for you?
Let's see here. I was like third in B class.
Nice.
Of course, I won junior division out of the 3 junior shooters that were there. I don't remember how I done in the finishing in the overall or in my division. I don't even remember. I think I was like 26th or 30th in production. Like, it wasn't a great finish, that's for sure.
Yeah, but that's how most major matches go. People just get humbled, or they figure out, oh, there's a lot more work to do.
Yeah, you realize that there's other really good shooters out there. You're not the only one, pretty much.
Yeah. So what happened next? So you shoot this major match. You're addicted to production. You like production. Like, what happened from there?
No, after that, I absolutely hated production again. Like, threw the Glock 17 back in the safe and went
seriously?
back to carry optics. Yes.
What?
Yes, I did not start shooting production again until March of 2020.
Oh wow!
So I mean, it was
a couple years.
Almost a year. Yeah, almost a year before I started shooting it again.
What did you hate about production? Was it the reloading, the 10 rounds?
The 10 rounds. The 10 rounds. I didn't have as much fun with reloading between every position, and you go to a local match and there's always that open shooter or PCC shooter that's a match director and puts like 14 or 15 round arrays in one spot, and you're sitting there doing a standing mag change. I hated that.
Yeah.
All I shot at the time was local, so I wasn't worried about being a big shot in production or anything like that in the local area. It was just dumb to me.
Sure. Yeah. Nobody ever leaves their local circle sometimes and realizes you're a much smaller fish in a bigger pond.
Yeah. So I just went straight back to carry optics and kept shooting it.
Cool. So for carry optics too, what classification did you start with, and where are you now?
I started with B class, and trying to think here. Of course, now I'm after you make GM and production, everything else you're a master. And so
Yeah.
I think I still have an A class percentage in carry optics though.
Yeah. Okay. Now, if you had to pick one division now for the rest of your life, limited, carry optics, production, what would it be?
Probably limited.
Okay. It's much more fun.
Yeah, I do like shooting a limited gun. Whether it's like Glock 35, 24, or 2011, I do like shooting limited.
Awesome. Okay, so for you and your brother, like, were you guys training together, shooting live fire together? Like, what is your shooting dynamic together?
Uh, we don't really train together. Like, whenever I go out to practice, I have some set drills that I do. I run through my drills, and if there's something I need to work on, I work on that at the very end. Then I go back to something accuracy driven because of the bumpy things on my slide compared to his red dot. And I don't even know what his practice sessions look like because I'm not out there. We practice completely separately. Same thing with dry fire. But once we go to the match, I mean, we're typically on the squad together.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just us shooting the match together. That's how it's always been, I guess you could say.
So I feel like y'all's dynamic though, like on maybe from my perspective, maybe I'm wrong. I feel like you're the calming presence out of the both of you. And I feel like Trace puts a lot of pressure on himself. Is that accurate?
You would be correct.
Yeah.
Yeah, that might be a good way to put it.
So how do you guys like work together as a team, whether it's walking stages or even like during the match? Like, how do you both feed off one another, help each other? Because I do think there is value to that. Because you do a lot for him and he does a lot for you too, I think.
So we both have different ways of looking at stages. Mm-hmm. So we just kind of like bounce ideas off each other. Of course, me doing a reload every position, I can't take every stage plan that he does, mm-hmm. but sometimes it's better to eat a standing reload or a 1 or 2 step reload and run the stage the correct way, than doing it a stupid way but having a big area to do a mag change. Mm-hmm. So typically I can use some of the stage plans. Occasionally I'll have a decent stage plan, but I will give the stage planning to him. He does a lot more stage planning than I do.
That's cool though.
I don't come up with great stage plans all the time. Occasionally I do pull them out, but like Area 5, I had a couple of good ideas and they worked out, but mm-hmm. It just depends on the day.
Okay. So how do you guys play off each other when it's like a 3-day major match?
So whenever it's a 3-day major match, as soon as the shooting is done, I'm no longer on the range. My mind is not there. I am off the range. I'm there. I'm just relaxing at that point. Typically, he will be walking the stages for the next day already. Mm-hmm. For the most part, we kind of like stay out of each other's way whenever it comes to 3-day major matches, which I mean, we've only shot 2 together, which was Factory Gun and Carry Optics Nationals. Mm-hmm. But occasionally I have to help him calm down a little bit whenever it comes to the stages or the match itself, because I'm sure you've seen it. Trace is very hard on himself whenever he's made a mistake, and sometimes that leaks over into the next stage, and then the stage after that, or if there's another day, it leaks over into the next day. So occasionally he needs to be reminded that it's not as big of an issue as it seems. But he's gotten better about that, thankfully.
Yeah. I mean, he can definitely perform. It's the mental game at that point, really.
Oh yeah.
And like for you, how do you have this mental attitude of like kind of like caring and not caring, kind of like you said, like, all right, done with the range, leaving, and like turn it off. And like I've noticed that just whatever you do, you're just like, eh.
If you can't control it, don't worry about it.
How did you learn that? Who taught you that? Have you always been that way?
Uh I've learned it just, over the years. I mean, that's just the situation with life in general. There's certain things you can't control. So if you're worrying about it, you're just stressing for nothing. And I
Yeah.
mean, it's the same way with shooting sports or anything you do.
Yeah. Wow. And how old are you now? 21?
20.
20. Yeah, you're wise beyond your years, child. Um, like that's impressive. Did you ever take any like formal classes for shooting or anything like that? No. But you guys were mentored by people though.
Yes. Yeah, we've had some good mentors.
Tell me about that.
Uh, so starting out, it was a local guy that got us into USPSA, and through shooting USPSA, after he introduced us to it, uh, we eventually met Rick and Sue down the road, and they've helped both me and Trace out a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, you go to major matches and meet all sorts of people, and I think that you can learn something from everyone you meet, and you just kind of like pick things up along the way.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you can't use everything that someone says because everyone has their own individual shooting style or their own way of approaching a match. But if you kind of like pick up on bits and pieces of what you're gathering from other shooters, like we've talked to Nils Jonas in the matches, talking to Shane Coley, or it could even be watching videos of other shooters that you haven't even met and listening to what they're saying and just apply it, see if it works. If it doesn't work, throw it out the window. If it does, run with it.
Yeah. Yeah. What do you do in dry fire, by the way? Like what are your drills?
My dry fire, of course, here recently it's just been me trying to get used to the Tanfolio still, but
Yeah.
I hit reloads pretty hard in dry fire. Reloads, transition drills. I work on draw whenever I need it. I have a habit of not driving the gun very aggressively, or doing the whole thing where I'm not moving my head in front of the gun. I'm leading with my eyes. I have a habit of doing that, so I have to work on that in dry fire.
Okay.
I'll do some movement just to make sure that I'm not, being dumb. Like in matches, you'll see me drag reloads pretty often. And my time is always what hurts me on stages. So, I mean, any inefficiency is pretty bad for me.
Yeah.
So if I'm dragging reloads, then I'll hit reloads on the move during dry fire, making sure that I'm completing the reload within the first step or two out of position. That way I can focus on getting to the next position.
Yeah.
It's just little things like that I work on.
I actually did learn that in Travis Tomassi's class. So many people try to do all of that while moving, and it's longer than, like you said, 1 or 2 steps, get the reload done, and then move, which I found fascinating. What about like the live fire training? So like, do you take all of what you just did and do that in live fire, or is that totally different?
My live fire training, so I'll start off with something that's, based on accuracy and visual patience. And then I'll go to timing drills, bill drills, any kind of transition drills, making sure I'm just actually shooting the gun properly and not being too sloppy. And then towards the end of my session, I will confirm everything I've been doing at dry fire. Just hit some, 2 drills, or some much harder transition drills than I would typically see in a match.
Yeah.
Just things to make sure I'm doing everything properly in dry fire and not cheating myself.
Yeah. For the time stuff, like setting part times and stuff, do you have like a record or notebook, or do you keep track of the part times and where you're at, if you're going down or up or anything like that, or is that just all kind of in your head?
It's mostly in my head. I probably should keep record of it, honestly. I've just never stopped taking the time and wrote it down, but I should definitely start doing that. It's interesting because since I've switched platforms, the power times are completely different.
Yeah.
For now, at least, like my draw is a bit slower. Sometimes my reload's slower. It's weird because on a stage, I will nail nearly every reload with Tanfolio. Like, I don't get it. I go to dry fire, I might miss every single one of them. It's all mental, though.
I feel like you perform in a match. Your mental game is wild to me. Like it's there, and it's crazy that under pressure you don't really crack. I don't know.
So whenever it comes to pressure in the middle of a match, that actually seems to go back to the air rifle competitions that we would go into, because sometimes my scores would be higher in that like actual competition where we're at a different school competing than they would be in practice. And it has transferred over to, USPSA to some extent. Occasionally I'll catch myself being a bit too passive, and that typically cost me in a match by quite a bit.
Okay.
It's as long as I can recognize what I'm doing wrong and figure out a way to focus on something else, or just completely relax and shoot. It's always one or the other. If I can take my mind off of it or completely clear my mind entirely, then I'll shoot well. But otherwise, it might fall apart. It might be, if I'm focusing on my time, the time might be there.
The hits won't.
Typically not. The hits will not be. I'll throw a bunch of Charlies or sprinkle a couple of mics in there somewhere. Yeah, I'm known to do that. If I get too ahead of myself, I'll do that.
Yeah.
I did at Kentucky Sectional, and that was dumb.
At least it was helpful to you, right? Like you didn't have to go too far to do that.
Yeah, exactly. I only had to drive an hour and a half to throw a mic on a target that's 6 yards in front of me.
I've done that. I felt so stupid. Yeah. So stupid. It's like, really?
Yeah, it's the easy targets.
Yeah, it is.
Not always though, but
do you scoop draw?
So I have never really practiced the scoop draw until I start seeing the time difference between a scoop draw and a grab draw, I guess you could call it. After looking at the time difference between it, I've practiced it a bit. Granted, I'm still not sure I wouldn't throw the gun in the middle of a scoop draw, so still doing a lot of practice on that.
Yeah.
But I mean, whenever you've got some really good shooters doing scoop draws and keeping their draw times under like a 90, or in some cases under an 80, it's like, that's pretty hard to ignore.
Yeah, it is. That's impressive. I know a few that do that really well.
Yeah, I think I've seen videos of like Tyler Masonheimer. I mean, he nails those scoop draws. I mean, it is insane.
Yep. Okay, so for USPSA, have you set yourself goals? It sounds like you need to write things down. Do you have goals for this year in shooting?
So my goals, for the most part, is just performing better than I did last year.
Okay.
But they're fairly simple. But of course, whenever I'm going into nationals, I would like to be in the top 10, or that would be my goal, is to be top 10 at nationals. Of course, that's very dependent on match style, depends on who shows up, that sort of thing. But or going into an area match like Area 5.
Yeah.
Depending on who's shooting, I'd like to be in the top 5 if there's a bunch of production shooters, or if there's, some of the top guys. Like if Sal Luna shows up to a match, I'm probably saying, okay, I'd like to be, maybe no more than 10% off of Sal.
You could take him. I'm friends with Sal. I can say that. He doesn't have his best days always. He's a good shooter.
Yeah, I like Sal. I shot Florida Open with him.
Oh yeah, Florida Open. Oh, that was January.
February.
Okay, I shot Florida sectional with him in December. I can't remember the difference between those matches, so it always throws me off. But yeah, no, like he's been shooting the CZ platform for a lot longer than you have too. Like, so there's that too.
Yeah. That can be taken into account. Pretty sure I was like in elementary school whenever he started shooting. I guess.
I'm gonna call him old later. That's perfect. Oh my gosh. So like when you're focused on production, are you all in for that for like leading up to nationals? Is that all you're focused on? Will you switch over to carry optics to shoot that nationals too, or is it just production for now?
I don't think I'll switch over to shoot carry optics nationals. Like for the last carry optics nationals, I switched a week or two before the nationals.
Yeah.
Like my practice leading into it was very minimal.
You were such a 20-year-old.
Correct. So Georgia State was coming up, and I was like, I'm just going to shoot production for that. And as soon as I get done with like shooting production at Georgia State, that night I was dry firing with the carry optics gun. Like as soon as the match was over with, I was already dry firing with the carry
September to October. Yeah. So it's no, Brennen.
Yes, that not the smartest thing in the world, but it's what I've done anyways. And it showed pretty well. One of the stages, I'm used to seating 10-round mags into the gun. Yeah, so I didn't seat a fully loaded mag into the gun.
Put some more love tap into it. Yeah.
And it was I'm trying to think of which stage it was. Had 2 partial swingers. That was the end of the bay.
I've blocked everything from those matches out of my head at this point.
Yeah, I wish I had. It was pretty good sized field course. First shot out of the holster, magazine dropped out the bottom of the gun. I'm like, well, that's setting the tone for the rest of the stage pretty well.
I've done it. I've been there. I get it. Oh, yeah.
Oh yeah, fun times. And apparently you have to clean mags. I found that out on stage. Yeah, it's not like my Glock. You can't just run the mags through the dirt and keep going. You actually have to clean the mags.
And so you're gonna get used to that when you shoot 2011 too. Should probably take care of that.
Yeah, I'm slowly learning.
Again, 20-year-old. So okay, switching gears. All right, so shooting live. Now you're working in a gun shop, and that's fairly new.
I've been working at a gun shop since late September of 2021.
That's fairly new. Okay. Oh, 2021.
Yeah.
So a year and something. No, I'm dumb. A couple months. Yeah, I don't know what year it is, guys.
It's okay. I'm not going to judge you. People listening might, but
I forgot what day it was today too. And yeah. So okay, working in a gun shop. There's no words for it, right? It's just it is what it is.
Yeah, it's always interesting. There's that. It's very entertaining.
But it's like people watching with like dangerous, weapons. It's scary. That's a scary thought.
Yeah, it's a very interesting thought.
Oh gosh.
It's you have a few of those moments where you just have to sit there and nod your head and you go, uh-huh, yep, hmm, that's cool. Uh, yeah, I think they need me in the back. I will see you later, and then you just kind of like walk
Oh
off and they
gosh.
go.
So are you working behind the counter? Is this indoor range or just a store? Or...
Yeah, they have an indoor range. I'm typically out on the range, uh, and then whenever I'm not on the range, I go out and work behind the counter
Okay.
because we have other people that'll come out and relieve us. But I don't know which one is more interesting, working behind the counter or working out on the range. Because out on the range, I see either the people that have been shooting all their life and know everything about guns,
Yep.
or you get the tactical guys that come in. That those are hilarious to see. The firearms instructors
Oh gosh.
that come out and shoot, or they're teaching someone else how to shoot, and I'm just sitting there shaking my head the entire time.
Yeah.
Uh,
It's
but
unfortunate that like, can you teach at 20 or can you do that? I don't even know.
uh, so I haven't really looked into it, like becoming a certified instructor and all that. I probably should look into that because that wouldn't be bad for this area.
Yeah.
But it's when I'm out on the range, it's more of answering questions about shooting, or they're doing something so unsafe for themselves or
Yeah.
the range itself. I have to step in.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I mean,
Ranges are different. I never liked going to public ranges. It's again, I'm very open to feedback and coaching and teaching and all of that stuff. It was just surprising to me how many people taught the wrong things, said the wrong things, and I'm not shocked, and I am shocked. So it is kind of frustrating. And like unsolicited advice, they don't want to hear you correct them or say anything like that, and it's a fine line because you want people to be kind, I guess, to have people welcome people into the firearms industry, and you don't want to set that bad tone or that bad taste in that person's mouth. You don't want to be condescending, you don't want to be rude. So like, how do you navigate all of that? Like you said, you really only step in for 2 reasons and the rest you kind of have to let go.
yeah, it's so whenever I'm working out on the range, I see it as you are dealing with people that have loaded firearms.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's the very first thing you have to remember. So whenever you're speaking to them or making a correction, I think you have to be fairly calm.
Yeah.
Like if they're up here, you have to come in, talk kind of softly, and bring them back down, make them quiet down, and come down to where you're at.
Yeah.
So you have to start off with that, kind of like be kind whenever you're trying to offer them
Mm-hmm.
a correction, I guess you could say.
Yeah.
Um, New shooters will typically ask questions. So
I like new shooters. Don't you like new
that's,
shooters?
oh, yes, I love new shooters because they're asking me questions and they're like a sponge most of the time. They're absorbing everything that you say.
Yeah.
Um, but then you have the ones that let ego get involved and they won't listen to a word. They
Yeah.
are correct no matter what you say.
Yeah.
Um, those you just kind of like have to make sure they're not being unsafe
Mm-hmm.
and let them fail on their own.
Right.
And maybe they'll come back around.
Right. Um, it's interesting, like the people that are asking you questions, right, when you're on the range, I'm not saying like we're big shots, right, but they don't know who you are or what you do. And it's great that they're listening to you. I think that what's difficult again too is that you're a unique range officer and that you are a competitive shooter, you are a great shot, and they don't even know that they're learning the best. But say they go into another range, what if those same people are asking questions of somebody that doesn't know what they're talking about? So like the sponge is great, but how do shooters navigate like finding the right mentor, the right coach, the right teacher? Like what should they be vetting, people that they learn from?
I think it's important that the person they're learning from can actually demonstrate,
Mm-hmm.
a certain level of skill.
Mm-hmm.
Because what we get a lot is people coming in and be like, well, my uncle's in the military, or I had this instructor, he's former military or former law enforcement. So since they have that title of military or law enforcement, they automatically know how to shoot. So they're going to accept everything they say.
Wow.
But I seen a comment once on, it was one of those FUD Facebook groups. I think Tyler Turner is actually in that group, and he made a comment and said, go take a class from a USPSA grandmaster, something along those lines. That's probably some of the best advice I've seen for newer shooters or people trying to get into it.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
I think that's the best way to verify someone's skill.
Yeah.
Like, if they can perform on command, they don't need to warm up. All it is okay, here's the shooting challenge. Let's see what you've got.
Mm-hmm.
If they can perform in a situation like that, they can probably show you how to shoot properly, opposed to continuing to spill all these theories on shooting. You know, see a lot of stuff. Oh God, it is.
Yeah, I didn't want to get too far in the weeds, but yeah, it's always this like kind of catch-22. It's very difficult. You want people to own firearms, and I don't want to mandate, classes or what they have to do. I just would hope that they would all go get educated, whether they know a lot, they don't know a lot. I think anything formal education is helpful, but it is important that we've got the right people doing the right information.
Yes,
Yeah.
I completely agree, and that's what the issue is. Whenever I see shooters come into the range, they have the wrong information. They might have the right ideas, but they're using techniques that just either don't work for them,
Mm-hmm.
or they're just old techniques that don't really work.
Yeah.
I can see where it'd be very confusing for shooters,
Mm-hmm.
because there's a whole lot of information out there, and it's just like what we were talking about earlier with shooting, whether it's mental game or shooting technique. Not all of it's going to work for you.
Mm-mm.
I mean, not a very large statured guy, so my technique for controlling recoil is going to be a bit different than someone that's got 50 or 60 pounds on me.
Yeah.
And what works for them probably isn't going to work for me.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, the other thing too, I'm sure you see it a lot. Again, we want to support local gun stores. So I'm not saying anything against that, or just we want people owning firearms. But I have a struggle point when I've gone into a gun shop before, and I've been talking to my friend who is with me and being overheard about what I was looking to buy. And already I'm being told what to buy by somebody who overheard the conversation. But they didn't realize I was asking specific questions because I didn't know which one I wanted to buy for a class for teaching like revolver with, external hammer, or if I wanted this gun because of the grip for the females that I teach at least. And so I just got this unsolicited advice that he didn't have any clue why we were talking about it or what the purpose was. So he immediately said, well, my old lady, uses this. And I'm like, okay, again, that's awesome. But just because your old lady uses that was his phrase, doesn't mean I'm going to, right? So like the advice that people give can be very painful when it comes to guns. I think the only person that can make that decision is themselves. So like, how do you navigate that when someone comes in and asks like what gun to buy?
If they're asking what gun to buy, first thing I'm asking is, what's the intended use?
Mm-hmm.
Because that's your starting point, is figure out what's your intended use. And then it's like, do you want a subcompact, compact, full size, or are you looking for a pocket pistol? I mean, people are always looking for different things.
Purposes. Yeah.
I mean, from there, I'll show them, what gun kind of fits their needs.
Mhm.
And it's not always a gun that I might recommend because sometimes their budget may not
Yeah.
allow for them to go buy Shadow Systems or even a Glock or a SIG.
Yeah.
Sometimes they're looking more towards a Taurus, like a G2C.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, figure out what their budget is, figure out what they're looking for as far as to carry, if they'll be shooting it a lot, because you don't want to find someone a gun when they're going to be shooting a lot and say, oh, well, here's a 357 Magnum. You know, shooting 38 special and 357 through that is not going to be very cost effective.
Yeah.
But if they get a 9mm,
Yeah.
they can shoot as much as they want. Are you going to be training with this gun, or you want something that's going to last and survive you training with this gun?
Right. The other stuff, going into a store is helpful because you can go grip different guns. I think that's a big help when you don't know, if you've never handled them, and then I'm not a fan of indoor ranges, but they typically have like the rental systems. Well, not all outdoor ones don't have that. I'm just saying they're more commonly found, I think, at indoor ranges, where you can go and rent a bunch of firearms. You can go handle them, touch them, shoot a 380, shoot a 9mm. Because recoil, we've already talked about that a little bit, is so different in different people's hands. So yeah, there's that as well.
Yeah, and of course the recoil impulse depends on the gun.
Mm-hmm.
How well your hand fits on the gun. Figuring that part out for a shooter that part can be tricky.
Yeah,
because you don't know until you shoot it.
Yep.
Like,
go ahead.
We'll have people come in that are talking about how violent their 9mm is, and I'm like, okay, what are you shooting it through? And they'll be like, the Ruger LC9, I think it is.
This big, yeah,
it's
tiny barrel,
little 9mm, and it's not so much that it's really, really small. It's just that it's hard to hold on to because, grip's kind of thin, but it's long, and it's just kind of uncomfortable in the hand.
Yeah.
Well, you give them SIG P365 or the Glock 43X or even just the 43,
mm-hmm.
that those guns handle the recoil a little bit differently, and you can get a better grip on them. But some people associate recoil just with the caliber of the gun.
Right. Yep.
Like a 2011 is going to handle 40 cal a lot different than
that's exactly what I was about to say.
Is.
So exactly what I was about to say. It's like anything in a 2011 will shoot like a 22. No.
Yeah, like have a 2011 and 9mm. Yeah, it's
a cheater.
Yeah, it's dumb. It is dumb.
That's awesome. So for you, like your legal age, I'm guessing for carrying up in Kentucky is 21.
For concealed carry, it's 21. For open carry, it's 18.
That's wild.
That's
wild.
Yeah, there's a lot of gray area there because it also depends on who you ask. I had a buddy that went around and started asking police officers. Oh yeah, that was an interesting study done there. What the legal carry age was. A couple of them would say 21. To even open carry, so they need to be 21. Some would tell them that just need to be 18. If you are to Google it, it doesn't give you a definite answer either. It just says 18 to possess a handgun,
right?
But 21 to buy handgun or handgun ammunition.
So you can be gifted one essentially at 18, but not buy your own at 20. Yeah, until 21. Okay. Do you have to take a class, or how does that work?
So there's no class. They have constitutional carry, so you don't need a concealed carry permit. You don't need a permit to buy a handgun.
But outside of Kentucky, you would. you would need a Kentucky permit to have reciprocity.
Yeah, you'd need a concealed carry permit. And I think that is the downfall of having constitutional carry, is because a lot of the people that come in don't see a reason to have a concealed carry license.
That's what killed my classes, which I'm fine with. Like, I mean, that's their prerogative, but the education is not there and the lack of awareness is not there. And then I think too, like, again, I'm all for like constitutional carry. It'd be great if every state had that. Cool. But it goes back to, I wish every gun owner that was going to carry a gun would go take a class and actually learn their rules. Because like you said, you've asked police officers, you've Googled, you don't know. But even in states, there are rules of where you can carry, where you can't carry, what the rules are in vehicles, and state line travel is a huge thing, even with reciprocity. So that's a frustrating piece, especially like, I don't know where you live specifically, but I border like 4 states right now. So people are always crossing borders here.
Yeah. So I wish that, I'm not going to say I wish that they didn't go ahead with constitutional carry and stuff like that, but I wish that there was more awareness for,
Yeah.
hey, this is why you need a concealed carry license. And the standards on, oh God, getting your concealed carry license here is
Low.
fairly poor, in my opinion. Yeah. Like,
Tennessee has the strictest I've ever had in terms of the curriculum in the class, because I have to read every single word the state provides, which is insane. Every single word. And then Florida, it's so vague, as like their statute just says like you have to live fire in front of a certain instructor that's been certified or law enforcement or whatever. So like, oh, if you shoot a round to a water bucket or to a wall, 1 round in front of an instructor, like they can approve you. And that's what they're doing in the masses. And that's destroying the whole purpose of that statute, because I don't want to say loophole. Again, this is the harder talk of political nature of wanting people to be smart and safe, not wanting limitations on our rights, and not having to pay for our rights too. It's just, but then you want them to be educated.
Yeah.
Ugh.
That's
Yeah.
That's the painful part.
Yeah.
And oh God, that is the frustrating part of firearm ownership here. So you have the people that own guns but never shoot guns, but they carry, or they carry a gun and never even draw their gun from that holster.
Yeah.
They're just not educated with firearms for the most part, and I see that as an issue.
Yeah, I think all of us as shooters just could do better in education for people if they want it or not. You know, it's not forceful. It's just more of, our community could do a lot better job on getting educated, who to get educated from, you know, what that looks like in terms of training, because they do need that own time with their gun, like you said, drawing from a holster, learning how to shoot their own firearm. Yeah, it's a lot more that could be done. But
yeah, it's sad that there's not more, that the information is not readily available to all of them,
or advertised, or want to be seen because media.
Yeah, and it's sad.
Yeah,
but it's one of those, there's not a whole lot you can do, but you can attempt.
Yeah,
like that's
it's the best way to put it.
Yeah, that is the best way to put it. I think you can attempt to educate people, but not everyone's going to listen.
Yeah.
Of course, the thing I try to do is get people involved into sport shooting, because if you get them involved into USPSA or anything, whether it's shooting 2-gun matches occasionally, still challenge or even outlaw matches, if you get them interested in it, they're going to be training with a firearm, whether they, plan on it or not, because it's just seen as fun.
Yeah, and they're going to learn to be safe really quickly in those environments.
Yeah, you're either safe or you go home.
Yeah.
And that's I think that's the best way I've seen to actually get people to go out and train or get educated with firearms. Um,
Have you shot a match yet, real quick, from appendix carry?
I have not, but I do intend on it.
Yeah, I really want to shoot a match with my appendix carry setup. I have a full size gun that I use typically more in the winter, but it was kind of neat. March 15th, IDPA finally made their rule change to allow appendix carry, or, drawing from an appendix, which is great because people in competitive shooting can now shoot IDPA that way. And USPSA had already added that rule, which I think is awesome. So yeah, tell me more about what you think about people actually being able to go shoot their carry gear in competition.
I think it actually gives them an opportunity to see how well they perform with their carry gear instead of what's just set in their mind, or them going out to the range and doing set drills repetitively. I think everyone's guilty of going out and just shooting the same draw one shot, or maybe throwing a reload at 7 yards, opposed to shooting a stage with their carry equipment and see how well it performs. See what the issues might be, what the limitations are.
Yeah. And then you've got sidecar setup for magazine pouches, or a separate magazine pouch for reloads, and that will come into play.
Yeah, and because you're going to need it.
Yeah. That's the test of gear too. Competitions is where everything breaks.
Yes, it is. Sometimes it's in the warm-up days that things break. Yeah, I don't think I could have got any luckier than breaking a trigger reset spring on a warm-up day. I don't think you get luckier than that.
Do you have two guns now?
So I pretty much just have the Stockmaster, and I am borrowing a Stock 2 from Rick. So if the Stockmaster goes down like it did at Area 5, then I go to the Stock 2 and finish out the match.
That's pretty cool. Show me your setup there. Grips, sights, gun.
So I use for my front sight, I use the Dawson. I had to go with, I started out with the 180 height front sight on this thing, because that's what works on the Stock 2. I didn't take the sight radius into account. So I had maxed out the elevation on the rear sight, and didn't find that out until stage 4 of Area 5. Yeah, that was great. I looked down at it, I'm like, you know what? That's not in the right spot. And I stick my fingernail in it and start moving it with my fingernail while it's in the holster.
Yeah.
So I had to go to the 160. I started using the brass scales from Speechers International. For my little hands, that seems to work the best. The palm swells from Locke was just too big for my little girl hands, basically. I got them nice little girl hands. Yeah, if I dry fire too much, I start getting abrasions and stuff.
Of that.
Yeah.
What all did you do the internals of that gun?
Basically polished everything that's moving to a mirror finish, and I changed the trigger reset spring, the sear spring, hammer spring. I went with Patriot Defense for all those parts. I got a reduced power trigger guide bar spring. I think that's the correct terminology for that part. That helps with trigger pull quite a bit.
Yeah.
And then I go with the extreme one-piece sear for the Tanfolio. I like the extreme trigger shoe. It's just a little bit flatter than the curved one.
Yeah.
And the new Patriot Defense hammer that's where it's at. That's
awesome.
It is great.
Did you do all this yourself?
Yeah, I work on my guns myself.
Wow. Who taught you that?
Yeah, YouTube.
Okay. The University of YouTube. I like it.
Yes, that's pretty much it. Of course, Rick talked me through a bit of it because he's worked on these a lot more than I have. But for the most part, it's just watching YouTube videos until you hopefully figure it out. Yeah, that makes for long nights.
Yeah. Yeah. That's awesome. So like all those upgrades too, they really are custom to you, like you said, and like your grip, your trigger pull, all of that. How do you make that first double action pull count?
So I have a tendency to find the closest target in an array that's not stupid.
Yep.
And just blow it straight out of the way.
Yeah.
You can't always do that though, of course. So what I had to do to figure out that, hey, it's not really that bad, you're just being a pansy about it. I set a headshot target up at 25 yards and then walked back out with like a zebra at 15, open target at 7. And I'd start from the back, draw, shoot the double action, pull on the headshot target, and come back forward with it.
Okay.
And once I realized that, as long as you're pulling the trigger without disturbing the sights, it's going to be there.
Okay.
Once I figured that out, that's huge confidence boost.
Yeah.
And figuring out that the Tanfolio actually puts bullets exactly where I'm putting the sights at. Whereas whenever I was shooting the Glock, even though it was more than likely the guy operating it, they would go in a radius of where I was putting the sights at.
Yeah.
My first major match with the Tanfolio, that kind of showed, because I went through a target array and it was like pull a string to open a port, open target right in front of you, 2 steel poppers, and then a swinger. I pull it down and go pop, pop, pink, pink, pop, pop, and I could not believe that I had just done that. I could not believe it. So I just stand there looking at it, just staring at the swinger swinging by with 2 holes in it. I'm like, did I really just do that? Oh, the timer's still going, and then finish up the stage.
That's so cool.
Yeah, I was like, oh, that's cool. And I think it was Niels that made the comment. It's interesting whenever bullets actually go where you want them to and where you're aiming. You'll really like it when you get used to it. Like, yeah.
That's awesome.
Hopefully. Yeah. Of course, it really showed at Area 5 when they had the 2 poppers at, 45 yards?
That was really... I shot a rifle, so...
Yeah, I was shooting that with my backup gun.
Yeah. So, you had fun.
Yeah. Well, I went 1 for 1 on the steel. That's whenever I was like, oh, there might be an advantage to this. There's something to it.
Awesome.
Yeah.
I like those guns. Brian with Hunters last weekend, 2 weekends ago, I don't know what day it is, has a CZ Shadow 2 that he's had worked over. That double action pool does not feel like a double action pool. So like I actually got to go shoot a Steel Challenge stage that they just had set up there at the gathering, and I was afraid of the double action pool for sure. And I just dry fired it. I'm like, no way. And I hit every single time that first target. And it was kind of surprising, which is what you want a trigger pull to do. And now I hate that I touched that gun, because that means another gun.
yes, it does.
So
we're great guns.
Yeah.
I think for shooting production or carry optics, you can't go wrong with, the Shadow 2 or a Tanfolio of some sort.
Yeah.
Of course, I still like striker fired guns. That's just the inner Glock fanboy in me. I mean, whenever I was switching, I had several guns that I was thinking about, and I was comparing them on my drills to see what I shot best. And I mean, I was looking at the X5 Legion due to my brother, who's a SIG fanboy. Yeah. Mechanic, the TP9 SFX.
It's so nice to have too.
Yes. The Shadow 2 and the Tanfolio. And I was leaning towards the SIG for a bit, just because it shot softer and I could pick it up and shoot it fairly easily. Very ergonomic. I could mag change really well with it. But it was still in the, whenever I compared it to shooting the Tanfoglio, it just seemed like the Tanfoglio was so much more accurate.
Yeah.
It is, but it's hard to ignore that. It's really hard to ignore the accuracy difference. Which I'm never going to outshoot a gun. That's probably not going to happen. But it's easier to shoot certain guns.
Yeah. Oh, it is. It is. Yeah. Once you get to that level, I mean, it actually surprised me how much you can shoot some of those, I'll just say plastic guns better, even after you move up. It just makes it less intimidating, I guess. You don't think about it as much. I don't know if that makes sense, but that's how I found it to be. I'm like, oh, okay.
Yeah, that's, of course, I stuck with the Glock until middle of last year, I think. Yeah, I shot a Glock for a while. Now I'm not enough of a stud to just keep shooting the Glock. I mean, you got like Shane and Tyler Turner that are still crushing it with Glock. Jay Beal and Carry Optics, like insane.
And Morgan Leonhardt kicking everybody's butt.
Yes,
Glock.
Yes. I almost forgot. Yeah, that.
I won't forget.
She's impressive.
Yeah, she is. She is.
Yeah, that is impressive. But you got them. I mean, they're killing it with Glock. I just find Tanfoglio easier to shoot.
It's more fun. It's more fun.
Yes, it's, for me, it's since this whole ammo shortage, it's getting hard to find primers. You know, live fire has became non-existent almost in my practice sessions. I have to work a bit harder in live fire to shoot my Glock well. Yeah. But whenever you've got a metal frame gun that has a, I don't know, 1.5 pound single action trigger in it,
game on.
It's not too hard to shoot, and it just takes a little bit to get used to. Okay, that's what the gun feels like during recoil. That's how much it lifts. Now let's just go shoot a match. I mean, I still have to remind myself to grip the gun because I get very lazy due to how soft the gun shoots. But it doesn't require as much work to shoot it well compared to whenever I was shooting the Glock.
Love it.
I mean, I didn't feel confident going into a match unless I'd shot, 800 or 1,000 rounds in practice that week right before the match. Like, it would have to be something stupid, and I'm like, oh yeah, I feel like I can shoot well now. Yeah.
Now you don't have to.
It's intense. Yeah. Of course, now I can't as well.
That's true. There's that.
I mean, yeah, it's way too expensive to have that sort of practice session going into a match.
Sad to think about. That's sad.
It's very sad.
Ugh. Well, Brennen, is there anything else that you want to leave listeners with or that we haven't covered?
I don't believe so.
Okay, perfect. How can people find you on social media if they want to follow you?
So on Instagram, it's just brennen.decker.shooting. That's literally all it is. I'm not creative enough to have a fancy username. Yeah. Facebook is just Brennen Decker. That's literally it.
If you ever start to do classes or, someone comes to the indoor range that you're working at, and would you be willing to help them?
Oh yeah. It's, if I can pass on what I've learned over the last 5 years of shooting, if I can pass it on to someone else and maybe save them some trouble or save them some money, yeah, I'll gladly do it. Of course, the issue with that is just making sure someone's willing to listen.
Yeah.
That's one disadvantage of being a 20-year-old working at a gun store. Yeah, people don't take it very seriously until you shoot in front of them.
Yeah. Check your ego for sure. Like I said, think about Morgan. I go back to that. Like, I'm probably going to try to go over there and train with them, her and her dad, because they know a lot more than I do, obviously, and a lot better shooters. So I think we need to start ridding ourselves of these stereotypes of age matters. I think in everything,
Yes.
honestly. But what range do you work at?
Sportsman's Ride and Gun in Elizabethtown.
Kentucky.
Yeah.
Love it. Cool. Well, Brennen, thanks for coming on the podcast. Excited to see what both you and your brother do this year. And I enjoy seeing both of you guys on the range. And I'm stoked we're shooting together in September. Yes.
Oh, yes. It'll be a great match.
Finally. So I'll be just staring at you guys watching your footwork and your stage plans. So prepare.
I would recommend watching Trace's footwork and a little bit less on mine. Yeah. I still haven't figured out exactly how to use my legs. Sometimes I look like I just started walking yesterday. Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome. Cool. All right, listeners. Thanks for tuning in, and hopefully see you guys on a range this year. Thanks for listening to the Reticle Up podcast. Be sure to subscribe wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube. Follow along on social media at Reticle Up or 3 Gun Kenzie.